Is caste discrimination in services a reality, as was alleged by the first officer who committed suicide? Is this about corruption and therefore corruption being hidden under the guise of caste bias? What is really the truth behind these police suicides? I'm joined by Rajesh Jogpal. He's a former IAS officer from Haryana, comes from the Dalit community. Milind Awad is a caste studies and Dalit rights expert at JNU. Shashi Khan, former DGP Punjab, and Yashovardhan Azad, former IPS officer. Appreciate all of you joining us. I want to come to you, Yashovardhan Azad, first. What do you make out of this case? Two policemen committing suicide in a space of a week. Does it suggest that there is some foul play, conspiracy theories, particularly a second ASI committing suicide while he was allegedly investigating corruption?
Well, two things are clear. One, that corruption is absolutely rampant. And there are so many things which involve corruption. And secondly, what has happened is not really a great conspiracy, but straight facts. Number one, it's true that businesses in Haryana and in Punjab, for that matter, are threatened very, very seriously by the local goons, by even Lawrence Bishnoi gang. And that was the reason why one of the liquor merchants had gone to the IG seeking protection. Now, the IG's the IG's gunman was booked in a case for extortion when he asked for a monthly remuneration in the name of the IG. Now, this is a fact that 6th, the FIR was registered, and 7th, unfortunately, the suicide took place, and 8th, the complaint was lodged. Now, the second thing is that it's extremely unfortunate that this has happened to a Dalit officer, but also it may be said that in his complaint, he has, arraigned not only these two, but there are 13 people, 9 of them are serving officers, and 4 of them are retired IAS and IPS officers. So in the case of the IPS officer, I think there should have been an inquiry, because the main thing which has been alleged for registering a case against the DGP and the SP is that the officer who died was harassed mentally, and the case registered is false. Now, in that case, obviously, either the matter should go to the court or there should be a high-level inquiry conducted. And I don't think there was any need to remove them. That's number one. And number two, in the other case of the ASI is extremely serious, because he has alleged a lot of corruption. And that is one thing which is rampant and which needs to be looked into separately.
So we are looking at two angles. One is corruption. One is allegations of harassment on the basis of caste. Shashi Khan, taking up from what Yashovardhan Azad said, are police officers in states like Haryana engaged in extortion? Just as gangsters may be extorting from businessmen, are policemen also engaged in alleged extortion in return for protection that the police will provide against the gangs? And was this case somewhere tied into that? Is it a simple case of caste discrimination, or is there a corruption angle that needs to be fully investigated?
Well, I partly agree with Yasho. It needs to be investigated. Let me tell you very clearly, talking of corruption, involvement of officers, it doesn't pertain only to Punjab or Haryana. That's the true story all over. Officers, they indulge in all sorts of corruption, and so does the lower persons who are attached with them. In this case, the guy who has committed suicide, young on ASI, etc. Normally, the procedure is that they are the persons who do it. And once again, talking of Haryana, it is not only casteism there. In most of the states, including Haryana, Punjab, and elsewhere, it is also the state you belong to. Caste is one thing, and state you belong to. Outsiders are not treated well in most of the states. They say In the IAS, IPS, all these services, always we call it insider versus outsider. So this is the situation. And once again, I think the Haryana government has showed that is heading towards total incompetency. In the very first instance, they should have ordered a high-level inquiry by a central agency, because this was 100% this issue was to cover. And if you take action against all the persons, 16, 17, and whosoever is involved, action has to be taken. What does it mean? What will be the repercussion in the judiciary, in the bureaucracy, whether it's police or IAS or whatever it is? The Haryana government needs to ensure that straightforward
Right.
and in-depth investigation, preferably by a central agency, so that there is no allegation. And once again, yes, caste, insider, outsider, all these things hurt. And I'm sure, I think Yasho was from Bihar cadre. He's all right. I'm an outsider.
Can I-
suffered this thing. The person suffered. Thank you.
You're saying there is an insider-outsider divide. So we have a caste divide, we have an insider-outsider divide, and we are also talking of possible corruption and policemen engaged in possible extortion or protection money being given through businessmen. Rajesh Jogpal, you're a former IAS officer, and I'm told that you yourself have claimed that you've suffered from discrimination because you come from the Dalit community. Do you want to explain? What exactly do you see this case to be? Is it a simple case of an officer committing suicide, senior officer alleging harassment and discrimination by his seniors who he accuses IAS and IPS officers of torturing him? Or was that a cover for possible corruption that he was engaged in? What's your sense?
Thank you. Rajdeep, first of all, I want to pay my regards, homage to both the police officers who died, who committed suicide. First of all, let me just put it that the very fact that an FI is registered and the judicial process takes time, both these officers did not have enough faith. And because the society has perceived it as stigmatic, caste is the second factor. He has been, fighting the discrimination for 4, 5, 6 years. But somehow both these officers lost faith in the process, and the police registering FIR, it seems to be stigmatic. As Mr. Shashi Khan said, it happens in the government that your outsider, insider, and caste discrimination do takes place. But these discriminations also offers us a challenge, to do well. So I have not personally faced very serious discrimination.
No, but is the lack of faith, if I may ask you, is the lack of faith in the system such? Is the lack of faith in the system such that people would go to the extent of committing suicide? One is a senior IPS officer, one is an ASI. But the fact is, are we saying that the pressures on them are such that they would commit suicide?
Yeah, it seems so, Otherwise, why would one commit suicide? The very fact that it was stigmatic, they thought that they would go into jail and the court process will take a lot of time. There have been many instances in Haryana where previous IAS officers were tried and they got, they were acquitted with honor. And in the process, they face jails, they process FIRs. So the very fact that it is stigmatic, and officers from Dalits, they are sensitive. So sometimes, certain things, like postings are discretion, promotions are a right. Sometimes they feel that. So we need to address.
Okay, let me bring in Milind Awad. Let me bring in Milind Awad at this point. Milind Awad, already the case has become hugely political. Rahul Gandhi goes to the house of the Dalit IPS officer who committed death by suicide, and he says no officer can be who is from the Dalit community is safe. Now we have an angle where possibly this officer was involved in corruption or extortion and therefore was trying to protect himself. Do we need to be very careful and sensitive in such cases before jumping the gun?
I think FIR is in public domain, and this is purely a case of caste atrocity. This is actually case of moral corruption of caste society. So I just want to extend my point that suicide of this IAS officer, it reminds me Rohit Vemula's suicide, where he says that my birth is fatal accident. So suicide of Rohit Vemula, suicide of IIT students, denial of promotions in universities, denial of usual promotions in liberal government institutions shows that the massacre is a massacre and brutal atrocities are going on, but bloodless massacre is also going on there. So this humiliation, this is caste humiliation, and this caste humiliation shows that these are moral injuries which are done by the caste elites and those who possess caste.
But Milind, you're saying this is just a minute. You're saying this is caste atrocities, but in a video message that Sandeep Lather, the ASI who committed suicide, alleges that Puran Kumar was a corrupt cop who ended his life as he feared his alleged corruption would be exposed. So are we not to look at the corruption angle at all? You are convinced this is a caste atrocity?
I'm convinced this is caste atrocity. It's something to do with caste humiliation. It's something to do with the caste stigma, which is imposed on, even if he became IAS officer, that stigma does not go away from him. So this procedural inquiry will take, will probably able to say that what was the reason, but his FIR, his allegation, his denial of promotion, treatment to him in the usual service condition shows that his humiliation was not private, but rather it became public event. So I'm saying it is just not about this case, but overall, if you take the example of various cases of Dalit suicide, whether IIT students or Rohit Vemula or this officer, or there are various examples, shows that the continuation of Dalit atrocities is seen in actual social reality.
You're saying that there is, in a sense, you're saying there is institutionalized caste injustice being done, caste discrimination.
Precisely.
You don't agree with that, Yashovardhan Azad? You're shaking
No.
your head. You don't accept that in a service like the IPS, a Dalit officer who rises up is not, are you claiming is not discriminated against?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think once you have got into the services like the IAS and IPS, no caste, no religion matters. It's a question of complete merit. And let me put some more facts on ground, Rajdeep. In the case of unfortunate death of Mr. Purun Kumar, it is clear that the case which was there was ironclad because his gunman was captured. He was tape recorded regarding the extortion. Now that's one very important thing. The other thing which I want to tell you is that over the years, even when Mr. Purun Kumar had registered a case of complaint against his own commissioner, Singhal, or other people, inquiries were interested. Inquiries were interested to Mr. Sandhu, who himself was a scheduled caste officer, and inquiries were all done. The other thing which I want to tell you is some of the names there are, people like Manoj Yadav or Shatrujit, who have an absolute flawless and fantastic record. I mean, you can't imagine that somebody would do anything to an IPS officer on ground of caste. We never thought in uniform that caste or religion would be of any consideration, especially from those people whose records are absolutely spotless.
No, is that an idealistic? No, you're saying their records are absolutely spotless in a way, therefore you're calling for a central agency to investigate.
Yes.
I want you to respond, Milind, to what you're hearing, because as a professor, as an activist, we are seeing the moment a Dalit IPS officer in this case has committed death by suicide, his suicide note claiming harassment. Here you've got a different story being put by Yashovardhan Azad. He says the evidence shows that the gunman of this IPS officer, there is a tape recording of him involving extortion. So there is a corruption angle. Can we only look at it from the lens of caste? Do we also, particularly now that a second officer has committed suicide, claiming that the first officer was corrupt, do we not need a proper investigation before instantly claiming this is caste atrocity?
Okay, so so basically this investigation and procedural inquiry is one part, but as I said that Puran Kumar's statement and his humiliation is reflected in his FIR. So basically, we have had cases that president was also denied to enter in temple, right? Or recent incident of Supreme Court judge was also, had to face the humiliation. So actually, the humiliation which we see in public domain, it's something to do with the stigma which is in continuation. Now this stigma is visible in irrationals through various kinds of caste atrocities. Now this is also case of caste stigma. So someone, even if he or she become IS, IPS, or become part of elite services, the stigma does not go away. And that particular officer is alienated, is forced to feel the humiliation which this particular officer was going through.
No,
So I
not
think,
saying he's forced. Milind, okay, Milind.
yes.
Milind, I take your point, but I want to ask Rajesh Jogpal. Rajesh Jogpal, you've been a former IAS officer. I want an honest answer. The fact is, if there is corruption, then it doesn't matter whether you're a Dalit, a Brahmin, or any caste in this country. Do you agree? Or are you telling me that there is no corruption angle that should be investigated in this case at all now?
No, that exactly the point of investigation. That's why, I want a fair inquiry must be held. But there are two things, one is corruption angle, other is discrimination angle, no? Generally, discriminations do not happen at this level, but there is a consistent, record in this case. So that needs to be investigated. What I am saying is there needs to be a fair inquiry.
Shashi Khan, is a fair inquiry possible? Is a fair inquiry possible given the stakes involved, given that we are hearing reports of IPS officers, no less, being accused of extortion or taking protection money? Do you believe a fair inquiry is at all possible in this polarized, surcharged political climate?
2 points. Number one, as far as the institutionalized casteism is concerned, I don't think that exists. But yes, such incidents do come to notice. I have seen in my career spanning almost 4 decades that such things do come up off and on. It's very much there, but you can't say that's institutionalized, number one. And secondly, yes, as far as the corruption thing is concerned, there needs to be inquiry. I won't trust the Haryana police, and I think Haryana police should not take up this case because there are lots of aspersions and allegations are being labeled against them also. So why not give it to the central agency? Now I'm sure that the central agency, under a competent officer, will certainly ensure that it's all absolutely clear. Thank you.
I think that is very clear. I think we are in agreement on that. I'll give you 30 seconds, Yashovardhan, since you raised your hand. A quick comment. Is the only now answer a central agency without polarized politics entering? This cannot become a case simply of caste discrimination, but needs to be a case to investigate whether there is high-level corruption in the Haryana police and, dare I say, in the IPS.
Well, let me say, Rajdeep, that the last issue you raised is a very, very critical issue. And that's why I don't think that even a central agency would do justice to this. And if you really want justice in this particular case, then it should be given to a retired IPS officer or an IS officer or anybody, so that he's absolutely neutral. Because it is time to separate whether it's politics, whether it's caste, or whether it's corruption. And I tell you, all these are so inextricably linked. And what we have seen in the incidents are they show the collusion of all these three. And therefore, it has to be with clarity that the inquiry goes to a man who's absolutely clean and neutral.
Okay. On that note, I appreciate my guests joining me. As I said, caste, corruption and cops. Haryana has brought out some of India's senior side out, and which is why we made it our top focus today. We expect at the very least a truly non-partisan inquiry to take place. That is the only way justice can be done in this case.